Brought to you by Penguin.
Fear. 14 classic tales of terror and suspense collected by Roald Dahl. Read by Rory Kinnear, Tom Felton, Julian Rhind-Tutt and Kevin Eldon.
W.S. by L.P. Hartley. The first postcard came from Forfar. "I thought you might like a picture of Forfar," it began. "You have always been so interested in Scotland, and that is one reason why I am interested in you. I've enjoyed all your books, but do you really get to grips with people? I doubt it. Try to think of this as a handshake from your devoted admirer. W.S." Like other novelists, Walter Streeter was used to getting communications from strangers. Generally they were friendly, but sometimes they were critical. In either case, he always answered them, for he was conscientious. But answering them took up the time and energy he needed for his writing, so that he was rather relieved that W.S. had given no address. The photograph of Forfar was uninteresting, and he tore it up. His anonymous correspondent's criticism, however, lingered in his mind. Did he really fail to come to grips with his characters? Perhaps he did. He was aware that in most cases they were either projections of his own personality or, in different forms, the antithesis of it. The me and the not me. Perhaps W.S. had spotted this. Not for the first time, Walter made a vow to be more objective. About 10 days later arrived another postcard, this time from Berwick-on-Tweed. "What do you think of Berwick-on-Tweed?" it said. "Like you, it's on the border. I hope this doesn't sound rude. I don't mean that you are a borderline case. You know how much I admire your stories. Some people call them otherworldly. I think you should plump for one world or the other." Another warm handshake from W.S. Walter Streeter pondered over this and began to wonder about the sender. Was his correspondent a man or a woman? It looked like a man's handwriting, commercial, unself-conscious, and the criticism was like a man's. On the other hand, it was like a woman to probe, to want to make him feel at the same time flattered and unsure of himself. He felt the faint stirrings of curiosity, but soon dismissed them. He was not a man to experiment with acquaintances. Still, it was odd to think of this unknown person speculating about him, sizing him up. Otherworldly indeed. He reread the last 2 chapters he had written. Perhaps they didn't have their feet firm on the ground. Perhaps he was too ready to escape, as other novelists were nowadays, into an ambiguous world, a world where the conscious mind did not have things too much its own way. But did that matter? He threw the picture of Berwick-on-Tweed into his November fire and tried to write. But the words came haltingly, as though contending with an extra-strong barrier of self-criticism. And as the days passed, he became uncomfortably aware of self-division, as though someone had taken hold of his personality and was pulling it apart. His work was no longer homogeneous. There were 2 strains in it, unreconciled and opposing, and it went much slower as he tried to resolve the discord. Never mind, he thought. Perhaps I was getting into a groove. Difficulties may be growing pains. I may have tapped a new source of supply. If only I could correlate the 2 and make their conflict fruitful, as many artists have. The third postcard showed a picture of York Minster. "I know you're interested in cathedrals," it said. "I'm sure this isn't a sign of megalomania in your case, but smaller churches are sometimes more rewarding. I'm seeing a good many churches on my way south. Are you busy writing, or are you looking around for ideas?" Another hearty handshake from your friend, W.S. It was true that Walter Streeter was interested in cathedrals. Lincoln Cathedral had been the subject of one of his youthful fantasies, and he had written about it in a travel book. And it was also true that he admired mere size, and was inclined to undervalue parish churches. But how could W...
Sample complete. Ready to continue?